Hello, everyone. I am Christine Gritman with Social Media Pulse. Where is it? Over there. Right here, actually. Hopefully, you are joining us here for today's expert insight panel on the Social Media Pulse community, by the way. It's kind of a long URL there, but you can really just go to socialmediapulse.community, and there is a little image for this live stream right there on top. We really would prefer that you join the conversation over there, though we're super happy if you're also joining us on social media too. All right, so today we are having a panel discussion about goals. Goal setting. How do you set your goals? How do you figure out which goals to set? How do you measure if you're reaching your goals? And what do you do if you don't? And then, of course, we're all going to tie all this back to social media, because that is, of course, what Social Media Pulse is all about. I'm really excited about today's panel of experts. It's three people I know, like, and respect, and they all come at goal setting from very different angles. We have specifically a goal setting strategist. We have a strategic consultant who works for who is the CEO of a data insights company, and then we have a business growth strategist. So these are three people coming from very different arenas, but all of whom need goal setting and use goal setting in their daily life and work. All right, so without any further ado, let's bring them on. Debra Eckerling is first. Debra Eckerling is the founder of the DEB method, the DEB method, and she is specifically a goals strategist. Deb, welcome. Tell us a little bit about what the DEB method is. What are D, E, and B?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I love talking about goals. You know that. Anyone who knows me knows that. So the DEB method is my system for goal setting simplified. And DEB stands for determine your mission, explore your options, brainstorm your path. You can't get what you want unless you know what that is. So DEB is designed to help you build that foundation so you can set goals that are meaningful to you, that are going to help you live a better, more productive, life, live the life that you want. And it also helps when you want to embrace change, whether choice or by circumstance. So like I said, you start with that foundation and you build from there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here, Deb. And then we also have my friend Troy Sandidge. Troy is a business growth strategist. He is the founder of Strategy Hackers. I accidentally put something else on the graphic, sorry, but Strategy Hackers. And he is also the COO of No Middle. Welcome, Troy. Tell us a little bit about what you do and all of your business growth amazingness.
Hello, friend. It's so good to see you. Hey, everyone watching live and in the replay. I'm Trish Sandidge. I'm all about helping you grow fast and scaling faster. I reduce the complexity so you can have the strategies and systems for you to grow sustainable and scalability for a lot of different brands and organizations. So that's my sweet spot. I really thrive under pressure and the complexity because a lot of people, they know the results. They know where they want to go. The problem is they don't have the pathway to get them there. And I work in the middle to help them get from start point A to point B.
Love that. It can't just be the end goal. There's a lot of goals in between, and you need to find Troy to help you with all of that. And then last but very much not least is Katie Robbert. Katie is the CEO of Trust Insights, which provides data insights, analytics, all that jazz. She's also a strategic consultant and human behaviorist, which is fascinating. And I'm sure that especially comes into play when dealing with data strategy, but also dealing with goals. So hello, Katie. Tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Hi, Christine. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. So at Trust Insights, we focus a lot on the data, but where we really find that we can do the deeper work is by really understanding where the issues are stemming from, whether they're people issues, process issues, or platform issues. And more often than not, and this is where the human behaviorist part comes in, is that it's a people issue. And so one of my big efforts is around helping people sort of get unstuck, whether it's they don't realize that they're the one standing in the way, it's there hasn't been good communication from the top down, and all of that hinders being able to not only set really strong goals, but to be able to measure them in an effective way. So that's a lot of where we focus our energy.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And I do want to remind everyone that we have a conversation going on the Social Media Pulse community. So that's at socialmediapulse.community. You can see the banner for this conversation right up top. Or if you have a minute and you want to write down that URL, type it in, go for it. And I'm going to take that off in just a moment and get started with our first question. And I'm going to mix up the order when I'm asking the questions, you guys. I'm not always going to go, boom, 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 so that everyone kind of gets a chance to be first, really. All right. So we're going to start with a real softball here. But at the same time, I think that the fact that you all come from such different perspectives in how you use goal setting in your work will still make it an interesting and different set of responses. So I'm going to ask you first, why is setting goals such an important step to success? And I'm actually going to start with Troy on this one. So Troy Sandidge, come on down. Why is setting goals such an important step to success?
You ever think about when you're leaving your house and you like, where am I trying to go? You can't go anywhere without knowing your destination. I mean, let's think about this. With the power of our phone, we can have GPS and it can literally take us anywhere and guide us every time. But what do you need to do that? You need to set the destination from where your location is. And if you don't, you're going to kind of silly going around, spending hours and hours driving around, and you never get to where you want to go. So in the same sense, where you're setting goals, you're setting a tangible destination. And that is the first step to making something into reality. I like to think of it like this. There's the ways that we want to align this. And when you really want to make it happen, you must make perception reality. Writing it down. This is a contract between me, myself, and I, or if you're in your business, this is a set goal that I have for myself that now I am putting some effort and energy to it. This is what I want to do. And when you start doing that, you're actually willing yourself to align. I need to manifest this and make it become reality. And so many times we don't spend the time doing the deep dive of setting the goal. That is a really critical step because we can get lost in the task. We can get lost in taking actions, reading books, listening to podcasts, joining this right now, and consuming all this information. But if we don't know where our set destination is, our set goal is, we don't know where to put the right information, the right categories, in the right places for us to actually achieve it. So it's very critical and very important, no cap, that you set the goal first. Specific, be as specific as possible. The more specific, the better, because you really can measure your progress and milestones toward that if you're as specific as possible.
I love that. And that especially makes sense because if you can't measure the goals on the way there, you might lose hope, right?
Yes. Yes.
You got to make sure you're all going in the same direction. I love that. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Troy. And now we're going to move on to Debra's answer to that same question. So, Debra, tell us, why is setting a goal such an important step, such an important thing to do at the very beginning of your process?
Well, first of all, I love and agree with everything Troy just said, but I'm actually going to take us a step even before that, because you can't get what you want unless you know what you want. I said it before. I will probably say that again throughout this conversation. And I even start before setting the goals. So that goes with the D, the determine your mission, because it's not just about, well, it is. It's about creating the life you want and setting goals to get there. But it really starts with you. When you think about that life that you want, what does that look like? What is that visual for you? And it can change. Of course, it does. It's life, right? But the other part of it is you want to think about where you are now, your current bio, but also your future. What do you want your bio to say about you a year from now, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? And then the other part of it, so once you know where you are and where you're going, then you can determine your mission. What is that mission statement? Who are you? What makes you unique? And most importantly, how do you help? And that help factor, that fuel, that's really the driving force behind really any life's journey, goal journey. So you start there. And then I also like to figure out your mottos. So your mission statement, it's going to be probably long and intense, which is fine. But then that motto, that is really your barometer, your guiding point as you move forward. So you want to start with that groundwork and then set the goals that are in alignment with your mission and what you want to create, bring in the world, what you want your life to be, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, you mentioned creating a motto. So
Yes.
what goes into a good motto?
Well, it's really like that tagline, right? So my mission is to use my book, articles, consulting, workshops to help as many people as possible figure out what they want and how to get it so they can live a better life and impact others in a positive way. Like I said, very long, but my motto is goal setting simplified. So everything that I create is under that banner of how can I make the instructions as easy as possible? So let's take the Social Pulse community. You are out there to empower others so their businesses can grow, they can be better, right? So your motto would be?
Giving you all you need to succeed as a social media professional.
Okay, great. Long. The steps to success is even better because everything that you share is helping people on that path. So your motto can be a theme song. I always reference Ally McBeal when her therapist said, and I talk about this in my book, Your Goal Guide as well, what song is going to empower you? What's going to help you get through the, well, Ally had her own issues, but what is that song? What do you hear in your head that will really get you motivated and going? So it can be a theme song. It can be a title, you know, Queen of this, King of that. Whatever speaks to you that's going to help you stay focused and moving forward.
Oh, love it. All right. Now I got to get to work on my motivational playlist. Though I do have one. We should compare notes later. All right.
Absolutely.
So next I am going to bring on Katie Robbert. Katie, why is setting goals such an important step to success? And especially given that you work with data, I'd imagine you kind of can't do that without setting goals, right?
No, it's true. And I do want to echo everything that Troy and Debra said. You know, they make really, really good, strong points. I would add to that, you know, setting a goal it's an accountability metric. You're setting an expectation. So, you know, in the position that I'm in at Trust Insights, my job is to set expectations for the rest of the organization so that they know what the heck we're doing. And that comes in the form of goals. And so goals not only are something that you work toward, but it's also a communication tool for the people around you of here's what I intend to do. Now hold me accountable to do that thing. But also by publicly setting the goal, you know, whether you're setting a fitness goal and you tell your friends about it, or you are setting goals within your business and you're telling the rest of the organization, people then have an opportunity to actively participate and take ownership over, you know, the success of meeting that goal. And so it's a really important tool in terms of culture building, in terms of community. And so that way everybody can get on board once they know what the goal is, once they know what they're working toward. And that's what a lot of people are looking for. They just want that direction. And so goal setting is a great way to give people that direction that they're so desperately craving.
I love that. And we are going to bring on everyone just to see if anyone wants to get kind of their last licks in on the first question about why setting goals is an important step to success. I know with these panel discussions, sometimes something will set something off in someone's head. So does anyone have anything to add before we move on?
Well, I will echo, because Katie echoed us, I will echo her. That accountability piece, that's really super important because when you're sharing these goals and the way so I've got my Write On Online community, and every day there's a different prompt. So what are your networking goals for the week? What are your goals for the week? I separate them. Blog share day, Toot Your Horn Thursday. So sharing those wins, also important. And Photo Friday, share a pic from your week. So not only is it important for teams, but also as individuals to sort of have somewhere where you could share what you're doing. And again, you could be as vague or as specific as possible, depending on your comfort level. But to be with people who are going to celebrate all the steps along the way. It's super important, very motivating, and actually how I got my start leading actual live. Remember when we did things live and in person?
Yes.
Live goal groups. You know, what are you working on? What can we celebrate about you? And what are you going to do for next time? There's so much power in that.
You know, this leads really beautifully to the next question. So I am going to start with you, Debra, which is, how do you define your goals to ensure that they are challenging yet attainable?
Well, I'm gonna like skip the E. So the E method is explore your options. Okay, I won't skip it. I'll just like really cruise over it.
You'll
really
yada
quickly.
yada it.
Yeah, I'll yada yada it. So you've determined your mission. You know what you want, and explore your option is really the research phase. So I need a new job. I want to get better at the job I'm doing now, get promoted, increase my visibility, have more work-life balance. And that's really, okay, you want to do this. How are you going to do that? And I think brainstorming is so effective. And I talk about directed journaling all the time, which is journaling with a purpose, where it's just like 15-minute spurts of babbling based on answers to a specific question. And I think Troy was talking about the importance of writing it down. Yes, get these thoughts, all of them, out of your head and onto the page. And to do it, do like 3, 4, 5, 15-minute sessions of just getting everything out of your head, and don't look at it until after you've kind of emptied everything. And then you can go and look back and find your common themes. So that will help you find the direction. And then, I'm sorry, I guess this isn't a short answer. When you go down that rabbit hole, you can say, okay, I want a new job, and these 3 things interest me. So you can explore what those things are. Or I need to elevate my business. Okay, do I want to write a book? Do I want to start a podcast? What are these different options? And you do that research. Then when it comes to brainstorm your path, you want to write everything out as it relates to these goals, these intentions that you want to set, and you want to do everything. So you want the easy goals, so you've got those wins right off the bat, and reach goals for those dreams. Maybe it's 2, 3, 5, 10 years out, but things that you're working towards. So you want to have that balance. But again, it all goes back to, what is that mission? What is that motto? How are all of these goals going to support your purpose? Write them all out, and then you divide and conquer, which I'm guessing we'll get a little bit more into. But really, it's a start by throwing everything out there and then categorizing them and making sure there's a nice balance between the easy stuff and the stuff that's like, oh, wow, this dream reality is possible.
I love how many of today's answers have already had to do with making sure that those are those little wins along the path. Because if you get discouraged, you're not gonna make it.
It's so true.
All right, so now we're going to bring on Troy. Hey, Troy. So how do you define your goals to ensure or how do you help your clients really also define your goals so that they are challenging yet attainable?
So obviously I'm a growth strategist, and most times people want to grow. And no matter what goal you have, there's some level of growth to it. And so I got them through like 6 phases to help them do that. And the first phase, which is very critical, which is introspection, the examination of how are you thinking? How are you feeling in association with what you're trying to do? Too many times we want to go right into a checklist and all these things that we're listing, but we need to focus on, are we set up mentally prepared for what we're trying to achieve? Because that determines if we're going to be successful. After introspection, you go to investigation. Investigate all the ins and outs. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the estimation of me achieving this goal? What's required? What are the sacrifices? What are the things that maybe I didn't consider? You put the goal on paper, but what is the reality of this? We can live in our own kind of own world of what we think it is versus we don't want to deal with the reality of it, right? Then you want to do the initiation. That's the starting. That's starting on the engine and getting ready to go. Then you want to integrate. Once you find a rhythm, you want to integrate that into your initial flow of growth and goal setting. Then from that, you want to implement what's working, mitigate what's not working. And that leads to the last thing, which is innovating how you're approaching all these things. And so those 6 phases are a cycle. You're going to always be going through that cycle at every milestone, at every checklist, at every KPI, whatever your metric or measurement system is, in order to evolve constantly until you achieve the goal. But the last thing I would say, it's not enough to make sure you achieve it. It's enough to maintain it. So you want to put yourself in the right capacity and place and position yourself where, as you're building these layers, as you're working towards your goal, it's not to achieve the top. I want to maintain this level, because if I fall, I got to do it all over again. So keep that in the back of your mind as you're building, pursuing, and ultimately achieving your goal.
Yes. Oh, love all this mindset stuff today. It's gorgeous. All right. Katie Robbert. Now, I'm sure that you have to deal with this on both the kind of hard levels of helping people figure out what they're trying to measure and what insights that they need, but then also more the other level of human strategy and human behavior. So tell me, how do you help people define their goals to make sure they're challenging yet attainable?
Well, Deborah and Troy covered a lot of this in terms of, making sure that you have those milestone markers, but also that you take the small wins. And so I don't believe that every goal needs to be challenging. I do think, sometimes you just need an easy win to keep you motivated. But if I'm taking it to the data perspective, we go through a lot of, goal setting, KPI mapping, and metric definition. And so that's one of the ways that we help ourselves and also help clients to define the goals from a numerical standpoint. It takes a lot of the emotion out of it, because when you're using your emotion to set goals, that's incredibly important, but then it becomes a little bit harder to measure. Because I know for myself, if I'm setting like a fitness goal, for example, I might be prone to back off a little bit to make it a little bit easier on myself, versus if I keep the metrics the way that they are, then those are the numbers that I'm working toward. And that's one of the ways that we try to help our clients do the same thing, because they can very easily feel like, well, I hit like a quarter of it, so I'm done, right? And so we have to kind of keep them focused and help them see the bigger picture of, your overall goal is X number of dollars in revenue. If you stop now, then you're not going to reach that goal. And so finding that continued motivation, showing them those metrics, giving them the different tactics that they could be doing to help feed into reaching that goal. And so, as the other panelists have said, it's a constant evolution. There's a maintenance to it. It's not a set it and forget it kind of a thing.
All right. And once again, last licks, if anyone has a new thought that has occurred to them before we move on to the next question, how do you define your goals to make sure they're challenging yet attainable? All right. Moving right along. So the next question is, of course, there's lots of goals, and all of you talked about how it's not just one big goal, but there's goals along the way. So how do you prioritize your goals in a fast-paced environment where things can change really quickly? There needs to be some degree of flexibility there. So we are going to start with Troy. So Troy, how do you work with, not only in your own company, but also when you work with clients, especially who are trying to grow, how do you prioritize those goals in the moment when things are constantly shifting? You're muted, Troy.
All right, let's go again. My bad, y'all.
All right.
My stream struggles. I'll bring back an old favorite of mine, DART. The DART methodology: be direct, authentic, resourceful, and tactical. When you're direct about your situation and what you're trying to do, you can always keep your top of things in mind. Because, the first thing, people have a lot of goals they want to do, and they prioritize by the wrong metric. We're human, and we do this all the time. I always like to say either it's by ease or by what's going to have the highest impact to be the domino effect or the snowball effect for you to achieve other goals. And so that aligns with like things that I like to say. There's 5 pieces of this. The first one being power. What goal aligns with you at your most powerful state? Because if you're at your most powerful, there's a highest probability that you're going to succeed in that. For the next thing after that is personalization. What's goal is more personalized for you. When you're taking more personal, there's more passion to it. And when you're more passion, you have this emotional connection that you're actually going to do it more often and more frequently. And then, after that, persistency. What's something that when it aligns to your passion, it ties into your power, that helps you be more persistent and driving. And the last thing that with that is patience. All of that comes together with defining which goal or set of goals align with your greatest power and work backwards. Because sometimes, push versus pull. There's more energy for you when you're pushing than maybe when you're pulling. And if some of your goals requires too much pulling, you can strain yourself. With pushing, you can put more of yourself into it. And so sometimes it might be better to find the goals that align best with your power, that you can knock out the quickest or more efficient. And once you start seeing those wins, it psychologically keeps you in this good state of mind that when you tackle something maybe you're a little more resistant with, it's a little harder to do, maybe you're not as committed, it can have that domino effect to help you finish the other goals in tandem and in togetherness.
That's a really good point about how it's not always about the biggest thing. It's not always about tackling the most urgent or whatever. Sometimes it's about doing what you can do. It's kind of like some productivity experts say, make your bed when you get up in the morning so that you started having done something. It can be that simple. Oh, love it. Thank you, Troy. All right, next up we have Katie. So Katie, you're a CEO, as is Troy. As is Debra for that matter. You all run your own companies. So how do you but you have a whole bunch of employees. How do you prioritize your goals in a fast-paced environment where things can change really quickly because you got to flex, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, back to the point I was making about goal setting, it's accountability and community. And so if you are trying to manage these things all by yourself and you have a whole organization of people who are reliant upon these goals to, make payroll or get their budget set or whatever the thing is, then, it's going to be really difficult. And so the way that I operate and the way that I encourage my clients to operate is to, again, sort of have that sense of ownership so everybody gets a piece of it. And so this goes into the KPI mapping piece, with defining the goals. And so what my KPI is might be different from, Christine, what your KPI is, what might be different from Troy's KPI, but all of those KPIs together are going to roll up into the overall goal. And so we each have our individual part to play that collectively makes up the whole, meeting the goal. And so that's one of the ways that I find to be the most effective is that, again, sort of the accountability and the ownership. And so that way we're all moving in the same direction. And so if my, top goal is revenue, how do we ensure that everyone on the team is taking actions that always lead back to revenue? And one of the things that we do is we borrowed this from software development is called a user story. And so that way everybody has an understanding of what their main objective is. And so a user story is a simple sentence, which is, as a persona, I want to, that's sort of the objective, so that the outcome. And so by writing out these user stories for each individual who's participating in meeting the goal, they then have an idea of what their role is in, when things get busy, when you're sort of easily distracted, then you can always go back to those user stories and say, hey, Katie, don't forget your main objective is to do this. That's going to, lead up to the goal. Anything else right now is a distraction. So let's stay focused. And, easier said than done. We all get shiny object syndrome, but that's one of the more effective ways that I've seen to keep people sort of on task with keeping the goals prioritized.
Yeah, those distractions can be a killer.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
They're everywhere.
Sometimes it's hard to just keep chugging along, especially when there's a lot of balls in the air. All right. So, Debra, you are up now. So you, I'm sure, help clients with this all the time as a goal setting strategist. How do you prioritize and how do you help them prioritize goals in a fast-paced environment where things can change really quickly?
Well, I have to tell you, my head is exploding right now because I can go in like 20 different directions, but I think I'll just choose 2. So that's why it really goes back to that mission and motto. When you know what you stand for, it's like the best decision tree ever. So when opportunities come your way, you can quickly assess whether it's in alignment with your goals, with your purpose, where if it's going to help you get where you want to go. Is this in alignment? Yes, then of course, yes, you go full throttle into this opportunity. If it's a no, you have to say, okay, is this going to enrich myself, my business in some other way? So it really starts with, the groundwork of the explore your options, brings from your path for prioritizing, saying, okay, I want to do this. What are the top 3 short-term goals that are going to get me there? What are the benchmarks beneath these short-term goals, and what action items you need to do to accomplish the benchmarks to get to the goals? So it starts with the mission and motto to make sure that is in alignment. Now, on a day-to-day basis, then it all really comes down to, I'm going to say, to-do lists and tracking. Look at your life. I am all about setting you up for success. In some weeks, you can do more than other weeks. So at the beginning of the week, when you're prioritizing what's going to get worked on, look, pull up your calendar. I know it sounds really simple, but again, goal setting simplified. Look at how much time you can commit to what actions you need to take, and only basically sign yourself up for what you can commit to. And some weeks that I like to say an hour is and again, I work a lot with entrepreneurs and consultants, solopreneurs who are trying to build something or go on a new path. So sometimes an hour a week on these projects that are not necessarily, I was going to say side hustle, passion project, changing your life, those sorts of projects. Sometimes all you have is that hour a week. Put it in your calendar. When the time comes up, do it. If you have to move it, you can move it, but make sure whatever you commit to, you can commit to whatever you can do, and you do whatever you commit to. Right. So prioritizing goes back to, first it starts with, okay, is it in alignment? Then it goes to what time can I commit, and then commit.
If you're going to do it, do it. Just decide. And to decide is to omit other options. Perfect. All right. So again, if anyone has anything they want to add regarding goal prioritization before we move on to the next question, go for it.
Actually, I want to... I just want to add one more thing. I have this I call it the 5 of 7 rule. And a lot of people say, when you're doing goals, don't break the chain, work towards them every day. I think that's all well and good, but it's usually not realistic. You can think about your goals every day, because I think that's human. But when you're putting yourself in a position to set yourself up for success, you have to look at your life around you. And maybe you say, okay, well, 15 minutes a day is easy. I can do 15 minutes a day every single day. Guess what? Life happens. You're going to miss a day, maybe 2. And if you're tempted to just like tack on that time, 15 minutes on Sunday comes an hour on Wednesday, because if you didn't have the 15 minutes on Sunday, you don't have that hour on Wednesday. So that's why I'm so big on look at your life, see what you can commit to, and only do what you can commit. And do not feel that pressure to do this every day, because sometimes you just can't. And also downtime, totally underrated. It really helps you recharge so you can bring your best self to these goals.
Yeah, this is something I'm definitely learning in my own life. I love to, overpromise and underdeliver or overcommit and knock myself out. And I really am learning, it's far better to commit and say, here's what's realistic. Here's what actually fits. And if I do more, I do more. I'm trying to go that direction. All right. So next up, we have the very important element of goals. How do you measure your progress? Because what are goals if not a form of measurement, really? So we're going to start with Katie on that one. So Katie, how do you measure your progress for goals? And how does it vary? I'm sure it varies, right?
Well, I mean, you're speaking my language now. So we're talking data, and data isn't always just numerical. But in this example, if we're talking, the example I like to give is, if you're trying to if you set your goal as a specific revenue number, then you need to figure out what KPIs, those are your key performance indicators, are leading up into that goal, and then what metrics are feeding up into those KPIs. And so, a very simple example, let's say I run an e-commerce business. I need to have X number of cart fills, that's my KPI, in order to reach my revenue goal, because I know every cart fill is worth $500. In order to get to cart fills, I know I need to bring people to my website. So I need to see how many people I'm bringing into my website in order to get cart fills in the first place. And so I work with clients to build out those KPI maps so that they can actually set up a measurement plan with data that's going to give them any sort of indication of progress of, well, we're down on website traffic this month. Therefore, we're likely down on cart fills. Therefore, we're not on track to meet our revenue goal. And you start to break it down. You can break it down like every month we have to hit this, or we know that we have seasonality and we're going to pick up some steam in the summer and sort of drop off a bit in the fall. And so really understanding the business when you're doing that goal setting is going to help, because the way, like if I set a goal for me, Debra or Troy can set a similar goal, but the way that they go about achieving it is going to be different because we're different people. We have a lot of different variables in our lives that are going to, speed things up or slow things down, or just change the way in which we meet those goals. And the same is true of businesses. And so I can set a revenue goal of $1 million. Christine, you can set a revenue goal of $1 million, but we do different things. And so we need to be aware of the different metrics that we're using to measure progress. They're not going to be the same. And it's really that customization between specific goals between businesses that's going to help. And so using those tools like KPI maps to really drill down into what's going to tell you whether or not you're making progress or not. So, if I need to bring people to my website, maybe I take a step, backward from that. And I need to have really great awareness on social media in order to bring people to the website in the first place. And so it's all figuring out how those pieces play together to eventually roll up into the goal of $1 million.
So it's almost like goals are the plural of KPIs in a sense. And for those at home who may not know, KPIs, key performance indicators, they can be all sorts of different things depending on what you're going for. All right. And to that end, Debra, you help people with a whole bunch of different KPIs, I'm sure, because you help people with all different sorts of goal setting. So tell us, how do you tend to measure progress and encourage your clients to measure progress towards their goals?
Well, there's several different directions to go with this. But the way that my approach is, it's deadlines and tracking. So end of the year, the beginning of the year, goals are on everyone's mind, but really it's year round. So I think it starts with really deciding what you're going to do every month, every quarter, to take a look at how you are doing. And one way to figure out how you're doing is tracking. So I talked before about you set the appointments with yourself. What I didn't mention, the part 2 of that, is to track what you accomplished during these appointments. And I'm very old school. I love pen and paper. I love my Google documents, where it's just keeping that win list, whether it's as you do the things you say you're going to do in your calendar, you can mark it there, or to keep a spreadsheet or keep a Word document of your wins, because we need to track those. But it's a way of tracking your progress. And the reason that, and like I said, mostly I'm working with people who want to change their lives. So whether it's creating new products, writing a book, figuring out their next path, those little wins, those little indicators, that's what's really going to add up. And that's what gets so frustrating when you're looking to make these changes, because you're like, okay, I'm working. Am I getting anywhere? When you are tracking your wins, whether it's by calendar or by document, you can look at the end of the week, at the end of the month, and say, ooh, I did 5 of this action and 10 of those, and I wrote 2 chapters, and I sent out 20 new outreaches. I'm doing okay. So not only is it, and again, simplified way of tracking, look at what are you going to look at? What is going to be most effective for you to keep you motivated? Which way are you going to keep this win list to keep your progress? And also you want to keep dates on everything. You never want to cross anything out. It's all about the check marks, so you can keep tabs on what you've done and keep you motivated to keep going.
Oh yeah, that record keeping is absolutely huge. Very important part of it. All right, Troy, you're up. And especially since a lot of what you are helping people track their goals on is business growth. So I imagine there are certain KPIs that tend to relate specifically to whether a business is growing in the right direction or not. So how do you measure your progress?
As everyone already echoed, KPIs can be different, goals can be different, the amount of money or whatever the results can be different and complacent depending on where you are in your business or your personal life or whatever it might be. I like to say it this way: you have momentum and you have milestones. And momentum could simply be, how do you feel in pursuing this goal today? Is it better than it was yesterday? Is it better than it was last year, last month, whatever the quantifiable time difference in between might be? And then are you hitting your milestones? I say milestones specifically because I don't want to focus, hone in on one KPI in particular. Those small wins add up, and we're human. Life happens. We're in the post-pandemic era, but we're still recovering from those different things. There are things in our control and things out of our control that are impacting our ability to achieve our goals. How far, when, where, why, how, all of those factors. And so when you're maintaining your momentum and you're tracking your milestones, I find it to be one of the healthiest ways to not get too lost in the data, although data is very critical and very important, or being too obsessed with a certain KPI and not considering other KPIs, and just making sure that you're in alignment with what you're trying to do. The other thing I want to say really quick is not to be very nerdy in physics on y'all, but distance versus displacement. And so distance is, real quick, is the complete length of the path between any 2 points, as everyone knows. And then displacement is the direct length between 2 points. And so the distance between, maybe for me to get to you, Christine, is like all this stuff. But a displacement could be a straight line. And so when you're setting your goals and pursuing these goals, yes, look at the distance, and we're going through distance, but also keep in mind the displacement of things. Displacement is velocity times time, and distance is speed times time. And so sometimes we're not going as fast. Sometimes it's just that momentum check. Are we in that velocity place where we're still moving forward? Sometimes the quantifiable thing isn't how fast we get to our goal. It's just the fact that we're actually still maintaining momentum to actually achieve it, which is above and beyond many of other people who aren't even doing it. So keep that in perspective and you will get there.
Yes, as long as you're growing, you don't have to feel bad about not getting
I guess we're taking over, right?
That's all good.
I think what Christine was saying, as long as we're growing, we're getting better. So as Christine gets back on, any last licks? Anybody want to add anything to this point?
Well, I think, Troy, you made a really good point that you can't get so wrapped up in the data. The data is important. The data is, my love language, and I live and breathe it. But it's only part of the equation of reaching a goal, because there is very much a human factor in that, goal setting, goal tracking, goal reaching. It is about, emotions and, how you're feeling that day. And when you're talking about a larger organization, you need to be checking in with people, not just, hey, CMO, did you meet your numbers? Great, we're done. Like, it's everybody collectively, which is why I keep coming back to it's a community effort. It's an accountability effort, because it is. If you're just looking at the data, it can be very demotivating.
And the thing that you keep talking about, which I love, is that it's not just you.
Right.
And even if you don't work for a business, it's not just you.
Right.
Because you have your communities. And I was thinking, boy, did Christine do a great job of getting 3 people with really different perspectives, but really enthusiastic about the topic at hand, because this is what it's all about. It's the growth, it's the strategy, and it's putting all the pieces together. One thing that I'm passionate about is not only do I lead these goals for entrepreneurs, but I go into companies and I say that I am the employee retention solution. So what do you need to do to get all your employees on board with their goals? Because it is the personal and the professional goals. And this was one of my pandemic projects. I'm like, okay, what can we do to keep everybody on board? Well, so I go into companies to make sure the big bosses know what their people need and what their goals are, what they want to do, because we're all in this together. Doesn't really, I was going to say it doesn't matter. It totally matters. But anything you can do to elevate people, whether you're a solopreneur or within your company, to make sure everybody is feeling happy and motivated, it is so ridiculously important.
Yes. And thank you so much for keeping this rolling. It's stormy over here, and we just had everything just blink out for a moment. Thanks for keeping it rolling, everyone. All right. Did we get to all? We got to all of you with how do you measure your progress, right?
Yes.
All right. Fantastic. All right. Next up is what happens if you don't achieve your goals? How do you flex with that? And so we are going to start with Troy. What happens
The
when you
first,
don't achieve your goals or when your client doesn't? How do you handle that?
this is a fun one, and I spent a lot of time in this. I think the first thing to realize, failure is going to happen. There is nothing we can do about failure. Failure, not achieving our goals, whether it's by time or revenue, that happens. That is destined to happen. There's nothing if, ands, or buts about that. What makes other people successful is redefining what we didn't achieve in order to achieve it. I'm going to say that again. It's redefining what we didn't achieve in order to achieve. And then was it just simply, it's not just simply, I didn't achieve the goal. Was it not, did I not give myself enough time? Did I not ask for enough help? Did I not have a big enough budget? Did I not have the right players or talent in place? Did I not have the right ecosystem or circumstances aligned for me to actually make this happen? It doesn't stop because you didn't achieve. You must find out why and figure out how do we run that back. And there's two different type of people. There are doers and there are doubters. And both of these individuals are going to deal with failure. The people that achieve their goals are the ones who still do regardless if they fail. Failure is not a defining moment for your whole business, for your whole life. There's people who have failed last month and doubled down and tripled their revenue the following month. And so we have to have short-term memory, but long-term storage of when we got those wins. Those small wins add up, because when you don't get them, you can refer back and say, when did I get this? How did I get this? And the thing I leave you with on this particular thing, there's a code to this, and that's being consistent, being optimization, discipline, and execution. And despite of you not achieving your goal, you activate that code. Let's get back on track. Let's realign. Let's optimize. Clearly, we have to optimize because we didn't make it happen the first go around. We have to be more disciplined in what the tactics or strategies or milestones we have to pursue. And then ultimately, we have to execute. Most times, people don't achieve because they simply didn't execute enough. They didn't have enough discipline to execute enough. They didn't optimize their situation so they can consistently execute. And that's very critical. And that just comes down to the fundamentals of actually doing. And you don't want to let the failure cause you to doubt yourself. When that sow seed of doubt comes in, it slows you down. It makes you hesitant. You have to be sharp and clear. You have to really know and have that conviction of, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to make that happen. And so when you confront failure, it is not the end of the world. It just simply means we have to optimize, swerve, realign ourselves, apply discipline, and execute again.
I absolutely love all your acronyms. I'm kind of wondering if swerve stands for something now too. And if it doesn't, I think you got to get on it. All right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Troy. And now we are going to have Katie talk to us about what you do when you or your team or your business that you're CEO of or your clients, what happens when goals are not reached?
Troy covered a lot of really good points in terms of you just sort of pick yourself up and keep moving forward. But with that, I am an over planner. I come from a risk management pharmaceutical background. And so I've always been taught and trained to think through different scenarios. And so as I'm setting goals for the business or as I'm working with clients to set goals, I try to walk them through different scenarios of, what happens if you don't meet this goal? What happens if you over meet this goal? Because those are two very different outcomes. And so my goal in doing that, the term goal, my goal in helping other clients understand the goals that they are not achieving is, what's the so what? So let's say you set a goal of $1 million and you don't meet it by the end of the year. What then happens? Do you then have to lay teams off? Do you have to cut budgets? Do you have to reassess? What happens if you're at the middle of the year and you're not 50% to your goal? You're only 49%. Is that okay? And so really helping both myself and other teams get into the mindset of understanding the different scenarios of, is the world going to end if I don't meet this goal? Maybe not. Maybe it is. Maybe this goal is so important that if we don't stay completely focused on it, and, to Troy's point, we're not executing enough, we have to try a little bit harder to meet that because we've already walked through the scenario of what happens if we don't meet this goal. Now, if I set a personal goal for myself, like I want to achieve a certain level of strength in my workouts and I don't meet it, it's probably not the end of the day. I just have to reset my goals and rethink. But when you're talking in terms of dollars and a business, it's the stakes are different. And so really understanding sort of the scenarios of what happens if I don't achieve this goal helps you understand this is what's likely going to happen. And so what I found is it prevents businesses, it prevents teams from getting into that situation in the first place. But, things happen. We're all human. Priorities change. And so you just sort of, keep moving forward and reset the goal. I think you're muted, Christine.
Thank you. And understanding, of course, what really matters about that goal. To your point about, will the world end if this goal isn't met? I mean, that perspective is so important. To go back to the previous conversation about how there's often multiple goals going on. All right. So next up is Debra. So Debra, what happens when you don't meet a goal or when your clients don't meet a goal? What do you have kind of set up for that?
Well, I'm not going to repeat. Well, I might repeat a little bit, but definitely echoing what Troy and Katie said. But first you have to look at why. What happened? Did you run out of time? Did you run out of energy? Did you run out of motivation? And sometimes you just need to go back to step one. Okay, remind yourself, what is the mission? What is the motto? What do you hope to get out of, your life? And maybe you just need to do something different, shake things up. I had a client and she had just had a baby, and I was basically her push gift, is that she was prioritizing writing her book. We worked together for several months. She had an assignment. And then when it was time to check in, I didn't hear from her. And I think maybe even a year later, she said, Deb, I'm so sorry. I got overwhelmed and I just couldn't get to my book, but I did the other things we discussed, taking care of myself, doing other creative things. And I'm pleased to report I finally got back on track and my book is almost done. So sometimes it's just a not yet. So if you're not achieving your goals, look at why, look at your mission, see if they're in alignment, and see maybe you need to take a break. Maybe you need to etch a sketch and start over, and that's okay. In Katie's world, probably not, but in my world of the individuals and consultants and solopreneurs, you look at your life. Maybe it's time to put some other goal in the forefront and switch things up. One other thing, that's why I like alpha and beta goals. So when you're working on more than one thing at once, if you get stuck on one, you can work on the other, and that way at least something's moving forward. And celebrating those wins, you're going to feel good and motivated to pick yourself up and keep going.
Absolutely. All right. So once again, if there are any final thoughts, and we're actually going to be wrapping up in the next couple minutes in general. So if anyone has any final thoughts here regarding goals or goal setting that you'd like to share, go for it. You're up.
I can start on this one real quick. I just think that setting goals is a gift you give yourself.
Yes.
When you take the time to look at your life and look at what you want, that's the best gift for you. But to take the time and the energy to figure out what it is you want to accomplish, what at the end of the year are you going to be really proud to say about yourself, then put the items in place and gift yourself that time to work towards your goals so you can turn that life you want into reality.
Absolutely. And now it's such a great time to be thinking about that. I know my head is very deeply already in my 2023 plan for work and life. All right. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here today. This has been fantastic. I certainly encourage all of you to hop into the Social Media Pulse community, see what people are saying in there. If there's anything else you want to add in, you know where the thread is. And in the meantime, I would love to do a send off where each of you kind of tells people a little bit about yourselves and where people can and should find you. So let's start with Debra.
Well, I am at the Deb Method everywhere. You can go to thedebmethod.com and find me on LinkedIn and connect with me. It's almost Debcember, starting the year on the right foot.
Debcember.
if you need that motivation and inspiration to get a running start into the new year. But I'm always pro goal all year round. And if you want to learn more about the Deb method, you can grab your goal guide. The first half goes through Deb, and the second half is strategies for success. But if you're meeting me here, please connect, because we can't reach our goals on our own. We need our people. So let's all be each other's people.
Love that. All right, Troy, where can people find you?
Well, on social, you can find me at Find Troy, also findtroy.com. Simply put, I help entrepreneurs, startups, and scale ups grow and scale faster. And so if you're a business or organization or freelancer entrepreneur who's struggling with obtaining your next growth, I don't know what to do. I know my point A and I know my point B, but I don't know anything in between. Maybe reach out to me and have a conversation. And the last thing I'd say, the easiest way to achieve anything is making things simple. And the pathway to simple is making it a straight line. And so when you're achieving your goals, make it simple. You have a higher chance of success.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Troy. And last but certainly not least, Katie, where can and should we find you and your company?
You can find my company, trustinsights.ai. That's our URL. And you can find at Trust Insights on most social channels. You can find me at Katie Robbert on Twitter and LinkedIn. We help companies really figure out what their issues are using artificial intelligence, machine learning, really big, deep sets of data. Even if the issues are team issues, people issues, there's a lot of data to be had there. And we just really, our goal is to help people make sense of it. So whether it's goal setting or just sort of measuring what they're working on, those are the things we help with. And in terms of goals, I think the last piece of advice that I would give is a goal doesn't have to be set in stone. Goals can change halfway through. If you set a goal on January 1st and you find on February 1st, it was totally the wrong thing, that's fine. Just reset it and move on. And I think that that's the thing that people get in their heads is, well, I set the goal. If I don't meet it, I failed. Things change. It's okay for the goal to change as well.
I love that. And plus, I mean, one phrase that I really love is if you're not failing, you're not trying new things enough. Your goals aren't lofty enough if you're not failing sometimes. All right. Thank you so much to all of you. I'm so appreciative to be able to bring all of your brilliance to the Social Media Pulse community in this Expert Insights channel. Thank you, Expert Insights panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you for watching. We are going to be starting doing these Expert Insight panels more steadily in the new year. But right now, the next one is actually going to be in mid-December. We're going to be talking all about, what are we talking all about? We're talking about dark social. Woo! So keep an eye out for that. That's going to be coming at you in mid-December. In the meantime, thanks so much for joining us. Bye.